I heard a message this morning on YouTube, and this message really spoke to me. And it spoke to me because of the season that I'm in right now. And the title of the message, it did say like prophetic word on it. And I'm very weary of just taking it as face value, right? When I see like prophecy or confirmation on YouTube, whenever you guys or if anybody sees that, reads that, hears that, make sure that you always take it back to the Bible and allow the Holy Spirit to speak to you, to speak to your spirit to see if it actually is a word for you. But this word this morning, I saw exactly what I did. I took the message, I read the passages that she was referencing, and man, it spoke directly to my current situation, and I was truly blessed. What she was speaking about today was actually in 2 Samuel 9, and the title of it is David's kindness to Mephibosheth is his name. And what really stood out to me at the beginning of this story was the grace that David showed to Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth was a descendant of Saul. He was Jonathan's son, and he was a crippled. He had fallen when he was a baby, and basically was living in a desolate land where there was nothing, and he was basically living for nothing. He didn't have any plans, any goals, any dreams, anything like that. But then just one day out of nowhere, David was just like, is there anyone left in Saul's family that's still alive? Anyone that I can basically show kindness to or show favor to for Jonathan's sake? And that really shook me because so many times in my life, I've always thought that in order to receive God's grace, in order to receive God's blessings, you had to be obedient. You had to live a certain way. You had to just be good or be you had to be great or something like that, right? And this story really just flipped it upside down for me, where Mephibosheth was really doing nothing. And that's not to say that you don't have to be obedient. That's not what I'm trying to say, because there are times where God won't release your blessing until you are aligned with him, that you are obedient in your walk with him. But there are some times where God will bless you to get you back in alignment, just like he did for Mephibosheth, where he blessed him and allowed him to come back into the king's house and to eat at his table. Now, Mephibosheth could have just said no, or could have ran back to what he was familiar with, or just kind of not accepted that invitation. But no, he ended up staying there and staying at the king's table, and honestly for the rest of his life, because that's where he wanted to be. Even when David, it's crazy because I'll get into that part later, but that's the first key. Was he didn't do anything special. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't someone who was magnificent. He was someone who was crippled that David sought out to give him favor, and to be able to go from a desolate place where he was literally didn't have anything to now eating at the king's table and being treated like he was David's own son. That to me was inspiring. And what I also saw while I was walking this morning, I was reflecting a little bit more on this story. There was another character in the story named Ziba. Ziba was the one who went and found Mephibosheth in order to be able to bring him back to David, to tell him, hey, there is one more descendant from Saul. And in this story, basically David tells Ziba, hey, your master Mephibosheth is going to be eating at my table with me, but I'm giving him the rest of the land that belonged to Saul. And so in order because he's crippled, I need you, Ziba, and all of your sons and your servants to be able to work that land and be able to bring in the food. However, Mephibosheth won't need that food, so he's going to be eating with me, but you guys tend the land. And that to me really spoke to me, because I'm like, man, just because he was connected to Mephibosheth, Ziba was also blessed. Ziba was just a servant of Saul. So it wasn't even like he was a direct descendant or direct connection to Mephibosheth. He was just in proximity. And so what that was kind of telling me was that, man, like when God does bless you, when he has you in that desolate place and he blesses you, he's going to bless you enough, not just for you, but he's going to bless you enough for the people that are even around you. But then this story goes even deeper, because oh man, the Bible is so good. God is so good, because it also comes with a warning, because when you get blessed, you can't share, or not everyone's going to be happy for you. There are going to be people in your lives that are going to try to take or remove the things that were meant for you and basically try to keep them for themselves. And that's exactly what happened in this story that I'd had to kind of dig even deeper to realize, because in this story, yes, Ziba was blessed just by being in the proximity. But then later in a couple chapters, a lot of stuff had happened, like where David, he had got overthrown by his son, and he was fleeing the kingdom. And as he was fleeing, Ziba comes and shows up with a bunch of like horses, camels, wine, food, basically for a whole bunch of stuff for David and his group that he was running with. And David's like, "Yo, what is this?" And Ziba was like, "Hey, I got all this stuff for you, just so that way you guys can survive in the wilderness until all this blows over." And then David asks, "Okay, cool, but where is Mephibosheth, the one that I've been helping, the one that I kind of brought out of the desolate place? Where's he at?" And Ziba goes and he lies to David, and he says, "Well, I mean, I tried to get him to come, but he wanted to stay and live under the new kingdom, basically." And David was hurt by that because of all the stuff that he did for Mephibosheth. And in that moment, David goes, "Well, you know what? Forget Mephibosheth. Then I'm giving you all the land that was once Saul's that I gave to Mephibosheth. I am now giving to you, Ziba." And then Ziba obviously took it and he accepted it. A couple chapters later, when David is restored back into his kingdom, Mephibosheth comes back to David and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And David's like, "Oh, why didn't you come with me? Like, why did you desert me?" And Mephibosheth clearly was distraught, because when he came to David, he was unkempt, his feet hadn't been washed, his beard untrimmed, that type of stuff. So it looked like he was living in misery. It didn't look like he was a person that was rejoicing in David's exile. And so in this story, Mephibosheth tells him like, "Hey, I wanted to come with you, but Ziba left me. I told him to basically load up the camels, load up the supplies, and take me with him, so that way I can be with you. But he left me and he lied on my name." And in that moment, David realized what had happened. He realized that Ziba had lied to him and basically had betrayed him. But he couldn't, as a king, I know kings back in the day, they can't go against their words. So instead of basically going after Ziba, what he said was, "You know what? I realized that I got basically bamboozled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the land in half. I'm going to give half to Ziba, and then I'm going to give half of it to you." But in that moment, Mephibosheth basically was like, "I don't even want the wealth. I don't even want the land. I just want to be in your house. I just want to be, like, I'm just happy that you're back, and I just want to be where you are." And it's crazy because that's kind of where that story ends. And you kind of think about like, man, like, so Ziba just got away with, he got all the land and he basically was deceitful about this. But it's crazy because I kind of started thinking about this, like Ziba had to lie and to deceive to get the wealth that he got. And Mephibosheth got the king. In that story, who do you think won? On paper, in society, and especially in American standards, you would think that, well, Ziba won. He got all the riches, he got all the land, he got all the property. But what happens to, if you look at like just in the past 100, 200 years, whatever, look at men who have connived and have chosen to deceive their way to wealth. What happens is they always lose it. Something always happens because they didn't get it the right way. And the Bible doesn't say anything about him losing his land or losing anything, but in my spirit, I know that he had to live with that deceit. He had to live with that choice. Let's say he didn't lose his land, like, and he died or something, and he still had his wealth, whatever. The fact that he did it the wrong way shows me that he didn't live with peace. He didn't live in prosperity. Yes, he might have had wealth, but how many people have had wealth but then still live a life that doesn't fulfill them? That's kind of what I see for Ziba. But for Mephibosheth, he lived under the kingdom. Even though he didn't have land, he didn't have the riches on paper. He was under the kingdom. So when you're under the kingdom, you get everything that you have, all of the privileges that people who are in the kingdom get. And so even though he didn't have it on paper, he was close enough to David to have everything that he needed. And that is a word in itself. And I'm just thinking like, man, like God is going to bless you regardless. But when you get blessed, you have to remain close to him. Even if people come and try to take what you have, or they try to steal from you, or they try to basically take your inheritance, the key is to stay close to him, because Ziba was never mentioned ever again within the Bible. But I think Mephibosheth, he had a son Micah, and you can see that through Micah there was another descendant. So like there was still mention of him later on in the Bible. And if your name is not mentioned in the Bible later on, that means that you were kind of like wiped out, like that you were done. But if your name continues to be trickled down throughout the different points in the Bible, you were someone significant. So the fact that his name was still being mentioned later on in the Bible means that he was still someone that God looked towards. But Ziba, I mean, that was it. He got what he got what he needed, or he got what he got through the way that he got it. But then that was all he ever received. That was it. So, yeah, I'm just kind of rambling right now, but that was the story that really spoke to me today. And like I said, it came from a prophetic word through YouTube earlier today, and just being able to dive deeper into it, like, man, like, I believe that something big is happening, and not just in my life, but whoever is listening to this. Again, I don't put any descriptions, I don't put any hashtags or anything like that. So if you are listening to this, or if you made it this far, this message is for you. This message is for you to be able to receive. God is doing something great in your life, but you need to remain silent about it, because not everybody is ready to understand the blessings that you are about to receive. And they can see the reward, but they don't see all of the sacrifices that you made. They don't see the obedience that you had to overcome. They don't see the tears that you shed. They just see the reward, and they think, man, why does this person have that? So when you get blessed, when you get the reward, when you get your whatever you want to call it, whenever you get what God has for you, you have to remain silent and wait for him to tell you to move. And once he tells you to move, once he tells you to give, once he tells you to be able to share, that's when you need to. Don't just be so excited that you got blessed. Like, hey guys, look at this. No, you have to wait, be in alignment, and be disciplined, because silence is not a punishment. Silence is protection. So remain silent, remain in him, and remain disciplined, and he will show you the way. All right. Love you guys.